Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I am here to talk about Goosebumps The Vanishing, which is the second season of the Goosebumps TV show that has started. It's an anthology series though, so this really doesn't have anything to do with season 1. Now what I really liked about the series is that the guy who directed the first Goosebumps movie from like 2016, 2018 was involved in this. Like he directed and wrote some episodes, and I really liked the first movie. The second one isn't even that bad. Like it's enjoyable for like a Halloween watch. It's just the first one was like really like unexpectedly fun. I was also not a Goosebumps kid growing up because I was a huge scaredy cat, so like the books for sure were not happening, and then the movies, TV shows for sure weren't happening because they would definitely have given me nightmares. Like I was just like, you couldn't convince me that those weren't real. You know what I mean? So it's like reading them, it's not like I could be like, this is a fun scary story. Like I'd be like, no, these pumpkin people are coming to get me and I have to hide under my bed until it's safe. So I was never into Goosebumps, but I like the concept of it, and it's fun going back and like watching them and reading them and like seeing new iterations of them, because it's definitely like now where I am, my horror level. Unsurprisingly, my horror level has not moved greatly since I've been a child, so it's like now those are kind of right on the cusp of like the horror I can handle, like the like cutesy but also still genuinely scary moments of that. So The Vanishing is again the new season, but it takes place in a whole new story. I ended up binge watching it, which I never binge watch shows unless I don't like them or I really love them, so I feel like that should tell you how I feel about this. But overall, it was just a bit of a letdown. I think if we're comparing it to the Goosebumps movies that are in kind of that series and then this, it would definitely be at the bottom. I just feel like there was a lot that didn't feel particularly like goosebumpy, if that makes sense. When I looked it up, this season is based on a few different books of his. It seems like every episode is based on a different book that was written, and then there was just like this underlying thread of the plant alien life that was being made to connect everything, which I think makes sense when you watch the show, because it definitely feels a little bit like different stories being pushed together that aren't. I watched it with my mom and we both agreed that it definitely feels like a mix of like Stranger Things, Last of Us, like trying to capitalize more on that kind of sci-fi feeling instead of like having like a supernatural that I'm used to with Goosebumps. Like I didn't particularly love the reveal of the monster. I thought the monster itself was pretty cool. Like it was this thing that could just kind of like glom onto you and spread from literally inanimate object to person, person to inanimate object, and just take over anything it wanted. The main story is about these two twins, Cece and I don't even remember the other kid's name because he's so annoying. We're going to stay with their dad for the summer, and he's a botanist played by the guy who played Russ on Friends. Now the twins are Cece and Devin, and they're fine. Like that's the thing, is like no one on the show is really that likable or memorable. I think the only out of like group of kids, the only one that I liked was CJ, and then Trey after he had his kind of like redemption revitalization arc. He was pretty funny, but other than that, like Devin's super annoying and whiny. Cece was okay, but I feel like a lot of her dialogue was just so cringe. I noticed this, and I think this is a problem that we're starting to have, I realized, with like writing teenagers. I think a lot of people are confusing online speak with like how people actually talk, and that's just like two very different things, because there are like definitely like lingo and like words online that are so popular, right? Like they even tried to use bussin' at one point, and I'm like, no one is going to use bussin' in like a serious conversation outside of like, you're going to use it online or texting your friends all the time, but no one's actually going to like say it in real life in that context. So for them, I feel like that just showed me that, yeah, that's what's happening, is like, I think a lot of people are confusing like online talk and what like teenagers and like young adults say online with what they say in real life, which it is totally two different things. Like, you know what I mean? Like there is no way like some of the stuff you read online is actually coming out of your mouth in person. So I think for me that kind of made it that I was like, oh, I realize now like where the disconnect of is, why when people write teenagers, they don't feel like teenagers but feel like stereotypical like Gen Zers or something like that. That's it. Then we had Alex, who I think was underutilized. Like her story was actually pretty interesting, but I feel like it never got wrapped up conclusively. Frankie was just a hot mess, okay? Like Frankie, I feel like regressed us back 30 years. She was literally just had no other role than to be a love interest between two people and in a love triangle, and that just frustrated me so badly. So then we had Devin, Cece, Alex, CJ. The main kind of thing that gets this story going is these teenagers that on a dare decide to stay at this like fort that used to be rumored to be medical like experiments were going on there. So it's like this really creepy place, and we see them get taken by some mysterious substance that like takes over their face. Cut to 30 years later, we've got the twins coming to visit their dad, who was the younger brother of one of the boys who went missing 30 years ago. And I think this is where another problem comes up, is in the original Goosebumps movie, like a lot of the decisions they made that might not have been the smartest, you could at least get behind where they were coming from because it came from a good place. Like I remember him trying to break into R.L. Stein's house because he thought Hannah was like literally in danger. And it's like, yeah, I could see where it's like you throw kind of the ideas out the window when you think like someone's in danger that you're gonna go and try and rescue her, and I get behind that. Even in the second one, I believe like they were just like picking up like junk, like it was their job, and they found the puppet. So it's like things that you can get behind. I don't necessarily get behind you agreeing to go to the site of where your uncle presumably drowned 30 years ago just because the boyfriend of the girl you had a crush on called you a chicken and told you to go there. Yeah, maybe in teenage mind that does make sense, right? But it's not for a viewing audience gonna make me particularly feel all that bad for you when bad stuff happens to go down, because what else did you expect, really? I feel like Devin in general was just kind of an annoying character. Like, you could definitely see where they were trying to make him similar to, like, Boy Next Door, who's nerdy but, like, is brave and all that, like the guy in the first Goosebumps movie. But it did not fly at all. He came across to me as super whiny, super entitled, made very dumb decisions a lot, and I think that was kind of just the overall theme, because Anthony also made very dumb decisions. I do have to say, like, one thing that super annoyed me so much was when things would happen where it's like you'd see the plant or you'd see the monster or something that like is not normal would happen, they literally would always have the characters go, well, that's not good. And I'm like, that is not how you would react in that situation. And sure, maybe if you want to have one character who's kind of like quirky, adorable like that, where it's just like that kind of, you know, when like all those like things are going on, you're just like, well, that's not good. But it was literally Anthony said it, Trey said it, like it just kept happening. And I was like, this is not how you would react in this situation. Like you would be freaking out right now and not just be like, well, that's not good, when like worms are literally coming out of your arm. So that was frustrating. I feel like tonally it just didn't work. Because again, if like you're going for the vibes of like Stranger Things or Last of Us, like yes, there are humorous moments, but they're overall dramas. I would say Stranger Things less so, but even like the scare is the scare. And I feel like there was never really any scary truly moments. I think the only two episodes that really worked well for me was the fourth episode, which is where Cece is taken over by the monster and it is coming after her and like just getting bigger, and that actually felt stressful. Like the scene on the subway when she's like running away from it and trying to figure out and it's just following her and everything and she's alone, that was really good, and tying it into like her anxiety and like the pressure she's feeling, that worked really well. Episode 6 I also like because that was a lot of like revealing about like what was happening behind the scenes, and I felt like the tension and the drama and the action felt like appropriate for what was going on, you know? But other than that, it just felt disjointed. And I think that goes back to the idea of like, these are books that aren't really connected and they're trying to make a connecting storyline through them. Like, I like the idea of like seeing that the car got taken over, but then it's also like that never came into real play again. And I feel like there was also just kind of some confusion about like, what exactly this thing is, because we saw her in one episode where Devin was seeing visions of Hannah and she was like, you're the only one that can see me because the transformation has already started in you. And I was thinking, okay, that's because he got sprayed in the face in the first episode and like something's happening to him that's not happening in the others. But then there was no explanation for that. Like nothing ever happened to him that didn't happen to anyone else. Cece herself also drank the monster, so I feel like it didn't make sense for him to be seeing stuff and not her. And again, it never fully came to fruition because there was never any, I thought like maybe he'd start getting potted first or something, but that never even happened. And again, I just think the alien vibe was not it. I know that that is from the books, but I feel like that took a lot of the tension away because it just added in a lot of like more why questions of like, why were the aliens here? Why did they just want to leave? And then like trying to sell me on the fact of like, oh, they just want to leave, they just want to be in peace or whatever, but I'm like, no, like you've literally been potting people and like, yeah, I guess those people are like going to where you are, but it's still just like, you can't tell me this is like a dormant non-threat. So I just felt like that was just very strange. I did like the idea of like the plant like taking over. I thought that was really cool and actually scary when it's like it could just grab you, or like you don't see it actually coming, like it's just moving from thing to thing. Like that added some tension, but then when it reveals that it's just like an alien, you're just like, okay, cool. Like I feel like the design didn't look anything great. Like even when they're like throwing up black goo, that was Stranger Things. Like I just feel like there wasn't anything new about this. It just kind of felt like a like B version of like things that I've seen done way better. And like I said, I feel like normally what I love about these is like the characters and the friendship and the family storyline that they have with the relationships. And in this, I just feel like they kind of all just got smushed together. Like I feel like most of them didn't even really like each other. And again, not a lot of them had character development. Frankie, like I said, in general was just, oh, what a mess. Like, anytime she got angry at Devin, I was like, you do have a right to be angry at Devin, but the things you're getting mad at him for are not. Like he was like, you deserve someone better than Trey, who's been an awful boyfriend till we've seen the point. And she's like, you don't get, like, you don't know what it's like. And I'm like, I think he was actually complimenting you, but, like, you're blowing this out of proportion. So that was frustrating. One thing I did like, though, that I thought was really cute was, if you watch Love, Victor, Jen's actor from when she's an adult and Jen's actor from when she's a teenager, they are mother and daughter on Love, Victor. So I thought that was really funny to see them, like, portrayed again as playing the same characters. That was cute. I did like the idea of, like, the found footage and, like, going to see, like, what happened and everything like that. I did not like at the end that the brother was just like, hey, like, we're gonna go with the aliens now. Like, that made absolute no sense to me. And again, it wasn't explained well of, like, did they not have a choice? Like, is their bodies gone or something like that? I saw it coming because Ramona had mentioned when they went down to get the dad, like, you don't have a lot of time. So I was like, okay, clearly something happens if you've been potted for too long. So I thought that something was gonna happen where it's like they were being so weird with like, we want to leave, like we're going crazy, we really want to go for a walk or something. I was like, they're setting them up too much. So that wasn't a total shock, but again, the reveal of it, like the visceral like CGI of it was creepy. Like just thinking you're walking with someone and then all of a sudden they just turn into like a giant monster, like a bug. That's terrifying. So I feel like, again, there were parts of this that did really well, and there were, like I said, episode 4, episode 6 I really liked. I think there was good moments in this. I think they just tried to jam too much like sci-fi-ness into it. Like the whole lab thing and like that just felt straight out of Hawkins and it just didn't feel interesting. I liked more when it was like localized and like this plant that's like spreading from thing to thing and kind of like the fungus of like The Last of Us and stuff. I liked that and I thought that felt more scary and more like on the edge of my seat than like being like, oh, it's an alien. That's what it is. And again, there were questions that I was left with of like what exactly it meant and everything like that. I feel like it was just a lot of, I don't know, it was just a disappointment. It also had the strangest song choices I have probably ever seen in my life. It's like any tension that you do have by the end of the episode is undercut by Travis Scott coming on rapping like you're in a club. Like, I don't understand why they thought that would be the song to pick. Literally any song in this. They have like popular pop hits. It's like, this is not the vibe that I'm going for when I think of scary thing. I think of like, you know, like eerie or something, not like just top 100 hits blasting in my ear. And like, I really like when the music pertains to a scene and like plays into it. This was literally just like find a popular song and slap it in there. They're also very guilty of this thing, and I know like horror buffs have said how annoying this is, and I see it even as a non-horror buff, of like scary things are just loud, you know? So it's like it wants you to be scared, but really it's just gonna make a loud crash or like crank up the volume or something like that. So like you're on edge, and it's like, that's not scaring me. That's a human fear that everyone is literally born with of loud noises. So like obviously I'm gonna react when it's loud, and I feel like there were some genuinely good scares in this, which is why it's frustrating that I feel like if they leaned into that more, they could have done a good job. Like the episode with Cece where she's getting chased around the subway by that, even though again, that didn't even explain why like it was singling her out in particular, because she's like, oh, it's following me. No follow-up with that. They just killed it and then she was fine. I thought it was going to tie into like her anxiety or something of like she'd have to confront that head on. Nope, she just killed it. But I feel like, again, that like claustrophobia of like being stuck in the elevator, being chased, being like, where do I have to go? Like I'm literally underground in a subway and this thing is following me. That was good. And then I also really liked them realizing that like their dad was in trouble and like trying to fight all that stuff. And when the dad did get like taken over and they're going like to Camp Nightmare and figuring out what's going on and all that, like I feel like that was interesting, and that was probably when they were working together the best too. Like I felt like the group vibed the best. But overall, I think it was just, it's disappointing, one, because it doesn't feel like a Goosebumps thing to me. Like it doesn't feel scary. It feels more sci-fi, like I said, then like I'd want it to feel more supernatural or something like that. And then it also just, there's a good story in there, which is what's frustrating. Like I like the idea of plants like taking over, like this contaminant that spreads from like person to car to drink to person, like, and you never know where it's going next. But I just feel like they tried to tailor it too much to like other shows that have already been on and make it so it was something that we've already seen before instead of doing their own thing, which is sad. I mean, the good thing about this is if it does get another season, it'll be a new story, so they'll have a whole other thing to follow with. But I just think it didn't have a good, Goosebumps needs to have a good mix of scary and like funny, so it's like not like too scary, but like it is still scary, but also there's like funny moments. I feel like the humor in this undercut any of the scariness. Like when it's like you see like the dad is just like a head, but he's like, how did this happen? And you're like, okay, that's just like undercutting any tension by him just being like, well, just another day at the office, you know? So I feel like tonally they just needed to get it a little bit better, and then character-wise, I think they need to buff it up, even if it means they cut out some characters and just do like maybe a group of 3 or a group of 4 and really focus on like making them stronger characters instead of having a bigger group that just doesn't have much development or much character personality. I think that'll definitely help. But yeah, overall a bit of a disappointment. I would not recommend it unless you're like just wanting to watch something in one night, which is basically what I did. I would definitely recommend the movies instead. Even the second one, like I said, I feel like just gets that tonal vibe better and like you care more about the characters, in my opinion at least. So yeah, it was just a bit of a disappointment, but I would love to know what you guys thought about it, if you liked it, if you saw where it was coming from, if you've read any of the books that the series is based on. I don't know, I feel like sometimes you can tie in books that aren't related, but again, I feel like in this case, it felt a little obvious, like the fact that all of a sudden it can control a car, but we never really see that come into play again. It felt like it was tying things together that really maybe weren't meant to be tied together. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this series down below in the comments, what characters you liked, didn't like, what your favorite episodes were, and everything like that, and if you were disappointed compared to season 1. So yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!